You ever have one of those days where you record an entire voiceover and then your computer shuts down and causes you to lose all that progress? No? Just me? Well, here's take 2. Hello everybody, this is Odd Job Entertainment bringing you another video, and today we're going to talk about crafting. And with the Drake Vulture, we got our first taste of crafting. But today we're going to look at how that mechanic may make for interesting gameplay in the future. First, we need to learn how thermal scopes work. Infrared is a subset of electromagnetic radiation. All living things put off infrared light as heat, but this sits outside of what our retinal cells can detect. Today, we use image sensors tuned to these bands of light to capture them as data. We then transmit the data to a screen like an LCD, which emits visible light. In this way, we access colors outside the visible range and transpose it to something that we can see and interact with. There are many animals, however, that can see in infrared. Famously, some varieties of snake have this benefit, as do mosquitoes. That's why mosquitoes are so good at expressing their love for you. If you've ever used a thermal camera though, you may know that glass can severely hamper its perception. So the lenses are made of different materials, something like germanium. Germanium does a much better job of allowing infrared light to pass through. This allows it to then hit a detector or image sensor. Now, let's envision a hypothetical scenario in Star Citizen. Suppose that high-end thermal imaging is off-limits to civilians due to various factors such as the exorbitant cost. That's definitely how it is today. And perhaps manufacturers of thermal imagers will only sell to law enforcement officers and the military. That's also very common today. Crafting and exploration offer a way to bypass that. Suppose that in the Caliban system in Vanduul space, there is a species of bird that has exceptional thermal vision. By harvesting the cornea, you gain a material that is perfect for infrared transmission and can be crafted into an excellent focusing lens. If you then pair that with retinal cells on a substrate to make your detector, you then have a very clear and detailed thermal imaging system. If you put this into a scope, then you can own the night, right? And this kind of crafting is not even that far-fetched. There's many research projects today that are looking into combining biology and technology. For instance, what if you could use neurons to do computations? A cell-based computer could be very powerful compared to the silicon-based transistors that we use today. But if an item of this level of complexity and investment were to be sold on some hypothetical player market, you could expect it would demand a very high price by virtue of the difficulty in going into enemy space, hunting a rare exotic bird, and then fabricating delicate sensor equipment from their harvested eyes. The expertise therein is also not something a new player would expect to know about or even be thinking about. This would be a Halo product that only in-game players may have the ability to create. And by having these types of high-end products, this is one way that crafting could present ongoing challenges for players of all skill levels, particularly those at the in-game stage. Just like in Minecraft, you can present craftable items with a range of difficulty. When you start off in Minecraft, you make some wood tools, right? But you quickly progress on through stone, iron, and then you'll move on to diamond, maybe gold, and so on. Then you add in other mechanics like potion brewing, redstone, and suddenly the game opens up to a whole world of possibilities. In this sense, I'd like to see crafting and exploration in Star Citizen grow the same way. Right now in Star Citizen, we ship things like titanium, iron, and diamonds. But when was the last time you shipped a chunk of iron to your house? Though I'm sure there's going to be one mining engineer in the comments saying, I did.
You ordering a new rock?
I'm bidding on a new mineral.
It's not super common for everyone else. But if you've got a phone, there's a good chance that you've got a combination of silica, silicon, gold, various other metals, and now even some titanium if you're so unfortunate as to have gotten the newest iPhone. I hope you don't have it in your back pocket anytime soon. The cargo trading we do right now is not representative of what cargo trading would look like in a developed economy. We're shipping primarily raw materials with very few finished goods. Crafting is a potential fix to this dilemma. It would make sense to purchase bulk raw material from a mining outpost, but you'd then take that material and make something of it yourself, or sell it to a processing facility. Depending on how in-depth Star Citizen wants to go, You could then buy parts from this processing facility and sell it to an assembly line owned by a manufacturer. At this point, several parts come together to make a final product that then gets sold to customers. So you'd take those finished products and take them to a major landing zone for distribution. Crafting mechanics could let you take a more active role in that chain. Right now we can go mining, right? So we've got half the Minecraft loop already. But now after we've smelted the ore, what if we could take the material ourselves and make something? Like our thermal scope, for example, from before. It needs a casing, right? Most military-grade optics use a durable aluminum casing for strength and low weight. We may also need some gold for internal circuitry. It really depends on just how complex the mechanic is intended to be. But if mining and refining material nets a larger profit, imagine how much could be made from any given sample of raw material that you bring to market as a player. That's pretty much how it works in the real world, if we skip the massive investments into manufacturing plants. For instance, the raw material cost of your phone is probably around $50, according to some estimates. If you're watching this, however, you probably didn't pay that price. But this presents another appealing aspect of crafting mechanics. If you do all the processing yourself, you can get things for a lot cheaper. The total investment Apple makes on phones is around 50% of the sale price. If we apply similar metrics in game, you'd be making stuff for yourself for much cheaper, or selling it to other players at a significant markup. The markup you can demand is proportional to the expertise required in crafting. It's also related to the materials used. Retinal cells from a rare exotic bird from a distant war zone would definitely hike up the price in much the same way as poaching ivory affects price. Now, this analogy does fall apart if you look at it too hard. Killing a rare bird in a game does not carry the same ethical consequences as poaching an elephant does in the real world. There's no ecological impact from deleting a pixel. But if we stick with the economic point, I think you see what I'm getting at. Hopefully by now we see how impactful crafting could be for long-term engagement. So when do we expect to see this in game? Well, not very soon. Not even by the CIG version of soon. There's a plethora of features that logically must be implemented before crafting becomes a reality. And we've mapped some of those out to some degree already. Sticking with our thermal scope example, how far would CIG want to break down a component like this? If it's just sourcing materials, very well, get some silica, silicone, aluminum, bird's eye stir fry from Costco, shove it in a machine, and whammo, you've got a thermal scope. But this version of crafting wouldn't be very engaging, and I'm sure most people would say that it leaves a lot to be desired. Fine then, let's break it down some more. We start by harvesting some gold, we mine it, we refine it, then we run it through a series of presses until we have a thin sheet. We coat it on both sides with a polymer, and then we put some photoresist on it, hit it with a laser, burn away all but our electrical traces. Now we're going to solder some electrical components such as resistors, capacitors, etc. onto our newly formed PCB. We connect this somehow to our retinal cells, we painstakingly grind the cornea into a perfect lens. I think you can see where I'm going with this. You could, in theory, make a super detailed crafting mechanic, but you're going to lose players at this extreme as well. So we would want to land somewhere in the middle. Perhaps it's a matter of combining a few key components. Say for example an optical sensor, optic housing, and a rigid weapon mount. This is the typical kind of crafting that we see in most games. But how are these components made? Are they 1-step, 2-step, 5 steps? We probably want to lean toward the shorter assembly process to keep things fun and interesting. So let's assume that you can make these components in 1 step. What does that look like? Do you feed a bunch of raw material into a machine as we currently do with the Vulture? We could have an interactable machine that we then use as a crafter, something akin to an advanced 3D printer. Then you could take those components over to a workbench, follow a blueprint, and make your scope. But these kinds of considerations have to be defined before you can have a player do them. The easiest way to accomplish this in my mind is having it be an invisible NPC-based process first. With our cargo chain from before, you sell various raw materials to a couple plants, they make the components, you buy the components and sell them to the next plant that handles assembly. Then you buy the completed product and sell it to a distributor. Behind the scenes, the NPCs are crafting these components in a very rudimentary A plus B equals C type process. None of this at that point is player facing. It's behind the curtain, so to speak. But this allows you to get aspects of the economy balance in such a way that you can figure out reasonable crafting requirements before having players get their hands on it. You don't want, for example, 1,000 times the number of titanium phone skeletons with no electronics to fill them. This would require a major expansion of our current cargo hauling abilities. We need a whole heck of a lot more to move around than just raw materials. Hopefully, with the introduction of the Hull C, we're going to start to see this happening. The Hull C is perfect for hauling raw material. It makes more sense to transition down to smaller craft, though, to move further specialized components. If you've seen mining equipment in real life, this should start to make sense. You're moving massive amounts of earth to keep up with the demand of manufacturing. But as massive as mining equipment tends to be, most consumer goods are then moved by train, semi-trucks, box trucks, and ultimately your own car. So in Star Citizen, it would make sense to move massive amounts of raw material via Hull C, then crafted parts with something like a Carrack or Caterpillar, and then finished products in something like a Connie or Freelancer. The final step in our chain being whatever the customer is flying personally. At this point, we've seen how crafting ties into exploration, mining, cargo trading, and the economy overall. All these things require development of their own to be considered feature complete. So it should be apparent then that you'd want to have these aspects pretty well dialed in before making any major upsets. CIG could implement low-level crafting sometime along this path, but anything of major import likely is better suited for when these various mechanics are better established. By way of example, certain weapons are no longer purchasable in stores, right? Right now, the only way to get them is to loot them. If you add the ability of crafting these same weapons, you don't want to undermine the difficulty in acquiring them. Otherwise, the weapon itself gets devalued as a result. Conversely, if you want to add in items like our thermal scope that can only be crafted or purchased from other players, for it to have any real value, it needs to be challenging to create. If just anyone can make one with little investment, there's no incentive to engage in trade, and there's no motivation for high-level players to take it on as much. Then you also end up where everyone and their dog are using thermal scopes, which could negatively impact any semblance of weapon balance. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to crafting. In my next video, we'll be diving more into how exploration ties into this as well, so stay tuned for that. But I hope this video has got us thinking about how 1, crafting could be really cool if done well, and 2, how big a change it really presents. It's poised to be a major shift in how we interact with the game, albeit a distant one at that. But let me know what you think in the comments below. How would you structure crafting something like a thermal scope? Or perhaps you want to throw in a different example, and how would you craft that? What kinds of crafting mechanics have you seen in other games that you'd like to see have some carryover into Star Citizen? As you may know, or probably do at this point if you're watching my videos, I am doing a giveaway courtesy of Monster Tech. They have graciously donated a set of chair or desk mounts to one lucky viewer of my channel. All you have to do to have a chance of winning is comment on any of my videos during the giveaway period with that video's corresponding secret word. At this point, we've got quite a backlog of videos for you to check out. Almost as big as CIG's backlog of ships. At the end of the giveaway period, which is when this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers, I'll be doing a live drawing on YouTube. As for Monster Tech, I think they're a great company. I've been very happy with all of my products from them, and I think that they do a really good job of listening to community feedback and trying to iterate on their designs and make them better and better for us. And that's really cool to see. If you hop over to the Monster Tech Discord channel, you'll see that conversations are constantly taking place where people are getting feedback on their current implementations and having products suggested that could really make their lives better from the sim gamer enthusiast perspective. And Monster Tech is about willing to make almost anything, if within reason, I guess. I should couch that a little bit. They made me a set of custom joystick mounts that I am using with my MFC Blackbird chair, and they're great. They're based off of the design that I originally worked on myself, but they've been beefed up substantially to make them actually work pretty well, and I love it. If you watch me on stream, you'll see that I'm constantly switching from FPS mode to flight mode, and it takes not even a second to do. It is incredible. So I'm really happy to have that, and if you want to have a chance at winning based off of this video, the secret word is talk to me about how you want to see crafting implemented in Star Citizen. I gave you a few prompts before I started talking about Monster Tag, so you can go back and review those, but let's have a conversation down below. And until next time, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.